What's up? What's up? It's time for Done Way Past Funny with your host, G.D. Fenderson. Join us as we take a look back at the early works of seasoned comedians before they were seasoned with this week's guest, Leanne Linsky. It's time to get down and get dope with Done Way Past Funny. Hi, welcome to Done Way Past Funny, where we look at the work of seasoned comedians before they were seasoned. I am your host, G.D. Fenderson, certified forensic humorist at large, but I'm losing weight. And joining me today is the CEO and founder of Plauzzable, Leanne Linsky. Hi, Leanne.
Hey,
How
good
you
to see
doing?
you. I'm
Good to see
good.
you. If you don't mind, tell people a little bit about yourself, how your little bio, and how they can stalk you on social media if you so desire.
All your stalking needs. Great. So, as you said, I am Leanne Linsky. I'm a comedian turned entrepreneur. I started comedy in 2001 when I took my first writing class. And it's been a wild ride ever since. And now I'm an entrepreneur and the founder and CEO of Plauzzable.
Now, before I ask you about Plauzzable, do you still practice the art of comedian?
Yeah. At least I think I do. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, now, if you don't mind, tell people about Plauzzable, what it is, uh, as much as you want. I'm biased. I love your vision for it. So just tell people about it, and they'll see why I love it so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to tell everybody about it. So, Plauzzable is an online comedy platform where comedy fans can log in and enjoy live comedy in real time, meaning it's not pre-recorded. It is live happening as you watch it, and the comedian can see and hear you, and you can see and hear the comedian and audience and everybody. So if you think of it in terms of like an online comedy club, you can log in and you can register and attend shows online at various times throughout the day, and you can go through the comedian directory and search for talent that you'd be interested in or shows that you'd be interested in, and comedians can log in, create their account, and we provide the scheduling tools, the virtual stage, and the ticketing services. So
Now,
yeah, everything all in one place.
one of the things, because I was describing Plauzzable to my wife, and I was saying before Plauzzable came along, um, if you did a virtual comedy show,
Mhm.
which I've done a few, especially when COVID hit. You basically was a glorified Zoom call because that platform was not designed for that.
Correct.
And Plauzzable is designed for that by someone who does that. So
Yeah.
someone who understands the need for that. And so you designed all of that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. So I had actually had the idea for this back in probably, I don't know, 2015 or so when I moved from the East Coast. I moved from New York City to LA area, and I was like, "Wow, I'm spending more time on the freeway than I am on stage," because it takes forever to get anywhere. I'm like, and also I really missed all of the people and my fellow comedians from the East Coast in New York. And I ran a mic in New York for 7.5 years and performed and produced shows and did all the things. And I was like, wow, I really miss my friends. How do I connect? And I'm like, what if I do things online via Skype? And Skype, everybody's like, right. I'm like,
Yeah.
but I could use Zoom because even way back then, I was using Zoom for work. I was working remotely once I moved from New York to LA. And then life got lifey. I let the idea roll around, and I ended up producing shows in LA in person, and I did some podcasting. I did all the things, and that idea was still there. And so in August of 2019, before COVID, I started doing online mics using Zoom and my WordPress website and kind of cobbling everything together with existing technologies.
Right.
And it worked, right? People were like, "Oh, this is cool. I can meet people and like if I'm traveling across country, I can book shows cuz now I know somebody." Those kind of things. So people were like, "Wow, this is a really cool idea." And then of course other comics were like, "Why would I ever do that?" And then COVID happened, right?
Yeah.
And everybody started using Zoom and the other existing technology similar, like for conferencing tools in order to make that happen. But to your point, it's still like we don't want our entertainment to feel like we're on a call with, Steve from accounting. No offense
Right.
to Steve, no offense to accountants,
And no,
but
no,
that's
no,
not
there is offense to
entertaining.
Steve. I know
Yeah.
Steve. She's being nice.
Right.
Steve is not a
So,
nice person. She's being
no,
nice.
especially if Steve works for the IRS. So yeah, right? We don't want it to feel like a work call or like, "Oh my gosh, another meeting," per se. Plus, the other technologies are set up and designed for that, but for entertainment, specifically comedy, we rely on real-time response. So an
Right.
audio delay, one-way audio in which we can only hear one person at a time and someone coughs and misses my punchline, and it's like all of those things make it even more challenging for us. But then other people are like, "Well, why can't we just do a live on YouTube or Facebook?" Well, we can, but again, we're missing the vital piece of that real-time response. Great, people can DM me, but now I gotta stop and read,
Yeah,
Well,
yes.
a certain age, it's like, "Hang on a minute," and I gotta put on my readers to figure out what someone's saying about my joke. It kind of we lose timing and cadence and that experience. So, not to replicate in person, but how do we bridge a gap? And that's what I was trying to do.
Now, the other thing is like I know when as a general rule of thumb, I did not like do not like um the virtual comedy as a general
Yeah.
rule of thumb, and part of that is because of the way I perform. I I I don't okay. I don't need the audience. I don't need the audience to tell me I'm funny. If I didn't think I was funny, I wouldn't do it.
Mhm.
So, but it is helpful for the timing and for just like the energy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if you're the virtual shows that I did back when I did them, the people in the audience were actually comedians. The ones that I could hear were just other comedians. I could not hear any other audience. And
Mm,
so, and comedians are not known for laughing at each other. If you get
no.
comedians to laugh, you're doing a damn good job at being a comedian or humorist because they don't, they don't laugh like an audience does. And that's one of the things I appreciate what you're doing. You can actually hear the audience in real time and
Yeah.
not just the comedians who are on the show with you who don't
Right.
laugh as a general rule of thumb. Or if they do
Right.
laugh, it's that
Yeah. And we often, like, as a comedian, I laugh at things that audience will never laugh at.
Yes, yeah.
I find myself laughing at things that people would normally not laugh at, and people are like, "Well, it's so funny." I'm like, "Oh, never mind." But, yeah, to your point, like, I don't know, there's just there's a connection, a human connection, I feel that is necessary in comedy, It's like, I don't know if you've done improv.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so doing improv
Not
comedy
on
for
purpose.
years, right. So, I did improv comedy for years, and, oftentimes people would, record it, and it's funny, it would never translate to video,
Right,
It rarely translates to video. It's it's like it was hilarious in person, but for some reason, when I rewatch it, I'm like, "Well, that wasn't so funny." But
yeah,
but there's like a human connection involved in some comedy. Some things, of course, if they're really well polished and everything in clips, it can obviously translate. We watch streaming services like Netflix, comedy
right,
specials and stuff like that all the time. But at the same time, the comedian recording those specials isn't doing it just in front of a blank theater.
right,
He or she is doing it in front of a theater filled with people, and then we see it from a camera somewhere in that room.
right.
because again, the comedian needs that real-time response to create that energy and keep the momentum moving forward.
Yeah, no, I have well, it's I like I get it. I totally get it. Now,
Yeah.
other than just you do not just do the shows, you also provide workshops.
People can, yeah. So there is a way for us, and we can, and are going to provide classes and workshops for people who want to learn comedy at various levels. So we have a lot of well seasoned comedians who teach and are very interested in doing that, and we have a lot of people on the platform already who've expressed interest. So that's coming down the pipes really soon so that people can, and it's great because now we're not limited to geographics, like who's available in my area doing a workshop.
Right,
It can be anywhere, in the world essentially, and you can tap in and take from somebody who's fantastic at the art, and you're like, I would never have otherwise been able to train unless I went to LA or New York or
right,
Chicago or something like that. So yeah, we definitely have that capability, which ties into, this is the other big problem I was trying to solve, is how can comedians monetize their art form?
right.
Because as you know, we do so many things for free, and for a burger, a fries, a beer, whatever,
Yeah,
there's
food.
some bartering going on. And then also, at clubs, we have to take all of their classes, or we have to patronize their bar and mics on a regular basis in order to finally get passed at a club and those kind of things. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through, but
Yeah,
there's really great people out there that even in between those hoops can't sustain, a viable living off of comedy. So how can we bridge that gap? How can you get more stage time in between your in-person gigs and
right.
also generate some income from the art form?
Now, this is about workshops, and this is
Mhm.
because I've been one of the workshops it's funny. I'm not lazy per se, but if someone is better at doing something than I can do it, I'd rather they do it than me struggle and try to do it because first of all, it's not going to live up to my ideal. And second of all, I would be putting in twice as much work than someone who already knows how to do it because I'd be trying to learn it and do it and then go, okay, I screwed up. Next time I can do it better. When actually I just want to do it once. I don't want to do it a second time. And I'm saying this because the workshop that I've always wanted was a workshop for comedians when it comes to finances and showing them about money and taxes and stuff like that. Because
Mm.
at some point, see, I started once GD Fenderson became an LLC, so GD Funny LLC. Uh, I knew about stories about people like Willie Nelson, who, people who were just like performing, and then the IRS didn't go after them until like 7 years later or something, or 6 years later. And then all of a sudden it's like, you owe us taxes for 400 years. It's like, wait a second, I'm only 30 years old. So I was paranoid about that. So
Yeah.
as soon as I became an LLC, I started doing, filing my taxes, even like the first year, because I started making money, and
Mhm.
I didn't know how much money I was going to make. But if I'm starting to get paid, even if it's like $25 or $50, I'm like, okay, I will give Uncle Sam its cut if there's a cut. And I started keeping track of everything. And if I spent money on gas, well, in my case, I'd just do mileage and not gas.
Yeah.
But I buy, stuff for comedy. It's like, okay, this could be a write-off. And so that's the kind of stuff I was interested in because I had an accountant at one point, and the accountant I had was recommended to me. I said, look, I'm in comedy. I said, I'm a fledgling. I know nothing about the business of comedy. I don't know what I can deduct. I don't know what I should deduct. I just don't want, if for some reason I become big or famous, or even just making money and not being famous,
Mhm.
I do not want the nightmare of the IRS going, you've been on our radar for for 3 figures now, or for whatever it is, however long,
Yeah.
for 3 years you've been on our radar. Now we want to talk to you. And this one, I'm like, okay, fine, let's talk. Because I've been paying, I've been filing taxes, and I've been doing this on the up and up when I was only making $25 a gig or $50 a gig. Okay, so and that's the stuff that I think other comedians could learn from.
Absolutely.
But
And we actually do have someone who is going to be teaching a class on your finances for artists. So that is something that I'm excited to hear you say, because someone is interested in putting that workshop on and helping people out. And it is very important because, to your point, a lot of people don't know until it's too late. And then there's Steve at accounting, right?
now I like Steve from accounting. No, no, Steve's a great guy. I didn't know he knew anything about comedy. Love Steve.
Yeah, right? He's like, "I'm laughing all the way to the IRS." Yeah, so I think that's a really great point and important, because we know comedy, but we may not know that aspect of the business, and just
Right.
so to have some training on that is definitely doable. And I've been working with someone, her name is Estelle Gibson, and she just put out a book. She's been in finance for over 40 years. She's fantastic.
Wow.
And yeah, and she just did a TED Talk, but her book is called Poor by Choice. And yeah, and it's
Is she
really
talking about
great.
artists? Is she talking about like creatives
She's
or
talking
bunch
about
of
everyone in general. It's like, it's because being poor is based on the choices we make. How do we make better choices, and how do we uh get financial literacy, and how do we learn these things? Where do we learn? And she talks about her own journey in her book, about, how she was raised and who handles the money in the family. And then as you go out and you get your own business, sometimes we hire someone to do it, and then all of a sudden we're removed from those decisions again.
right?
And then it's too late. So how do we stay informed even when we have other people helping, whether it's a bookkeeper or a tax accountant or whatever it is? But how do we make sure that we stay um, in the know, and
Yeah.
also get educated on how to make better decisions? So yeah,
Yes.
she's great. So yeah, she's doing some blog posts for us. She's already started, and so you'll be seeing more of her, in the plausible area.
Now, this is kind of like jumping the gun, I guess, or but let people know, because like the workshop there, people are not going to know about the workshop unless they sign up for Plauzzable, right?
Right. Hmm.
So let's tell them how they can sign up for Plauzzable.
Oh yeah, the stalkering part too.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up. So Plauzzable, you can go to plauzzable.com, which you could see on the banner here, PLAUZZABLE.com. And if you're a comedian, you just click comedian and create your free account. Or if you are just a fan and lover of comedy, you can create your free account also. We have a blog, and once you've established your account, you can peruse the talent directory, the show listings, and of course, you're now on our newsletter. And we do not spam. It goes out once a week. It tells you, here's what's happening this week, and any news or updates. And that way you can become aware of when these classes and workshops roll out and participate in whatever speaks to you and whatever your needs are. And if you don't see something, that's where you really reach out to me and, hey, Leanne, this is something that would really interest me. Let's make it happen. And you can reach me. There's a contact form on Plauzzable under Contact Us, or you can find me on LinkedIn. And my name is written here on the banner. I'm the only Leanne Linsky in the world. So,
All right. That's great.
yeah, right? How cool is that?
Well, with a
So,
Y, there's probably two or three with an I. No, I'm
possibly,
just kidding.
yeah, right? So, yeah, Leanne Linsky, you can see it there, and you'll see it in the show description. I'm sure that GD will be sharing. So,
Yes,
mhm.
I will. Now, the let's see here. When people do a show, is there a minimum amount of equipment that they'll need, and what's the minimum they'll need to do it right? you know?
Great question. I love that. Okay, so the minimum, you could do it on a smartphone. Okay, minimum. Not ideal if you're hosting a show. You can watch a show. It is. it is doable on mobile. It's not an app. It's not a download. It's cloud-based software. So you're basically just logging in from whatever device you're using. You can use it on a mobile tablet. It's all adaptive. But if you're doing a show, to your point, or you're performing in someone else's show, ideally you'd probably want at minimum like a tablet. Uh, for that to be a performer. But ideally, it would be a laptop or even a desktop, depending on how often you're performing or if you're hosting. You know, some people can get pretty elaborate, like podcasting, right? You could podcast off a phone,
Right.
like at minimum, but you can really do more elaborate things with other devices or other software connections so that like you can do these banners. Like on Plauzzable, you can also integrate with OBS, which is a broadcasting software, which is free. We always look for like as a comedian for over 20 years, like I come out of pocket for so many different things. So keeping
Yes.
expenses down is important, right? But also producing a quality show
Right.
is key in order to get people to keep coming back. So, if you have a decent laptop or desktop with the camera built in and you can get a mic, I would recommend not using the mic on a computer for a
Right.
show
Right.
because depending on if you have a ceiling fan or background noise, like it gets echoey. It sounds like you're in your bathroom. Like that's weird.
Yeah.
But you can get a relatively good mic off, like Amazon or something for 20, $30, that a USB mic that plugs in and at least then it gives you better sound and isn't cutting out using headphones that dangle. Often, anytime it touches your hair, everybody hears it, and it's like crackle, crackle, static,
Oh,
static. Yeah, it's the worst, right?
I
You're
I
like, "Take
have
those things off."
I
Yeah.
have this stuff here,
Yeah.
and I've done 3 90-minute shows on YouTube. Now, it's not as impressive as it sounds because what it is I started doing comedy when I was 54. I know it takes a very, very long time to be so good that you'd be considered great, which means I'd be dead before that would happen. And I would be dead before anybody started paying attention to me and wanting to see my specials. But in the meantime, I'm a prolific writer. I can write a 90-minute special a year of
Wow.
material. I mean, I'm just prolific. And my wife says, I don't understand how you do it. And I told her I could tell her, but I'd have to kill her or divorce her.
Oh, no.
It's not worth it. It's really not worth
Yeah.
it because
No, no, that's not a
you
good
see how
idea.
far I've gone in my life, and it hasn't served me well yet.
Yeah.
But being a prolific writer, but each time, the reason I'm saying this is because each time something went wrong, and I tried to fix it the next time. So like the first time, I hired a crew to do it, and I said we're gonna record 2 shows and edit them together, make one great show. And it was okay, and then the time came, and I didn't have the money to do 2 shows. I said, okay, we're going to do one show, but it's going to
Yeah.
be, you know, we had like three 4K cameras or something like
Wow.
that. Um, they had mic'd the audience, but what they did, and I had a handheld mic and a lavalier.
Yeah.
I had no redundancy, and so yeah, and when they mic'd the place and when we did our rehearsal, there was nobody in the place, so
Mhm.
there was no need to turn on the air conditioning.
Oh,
But
yes.
the night of the show, it was sold out. The place was packed. The body heat
Yep.
kicked in, and they kicked on the air conditioner, and guess where the microphone it was like right
Yep.
and
Yep.
so the very first one, the audience is only what the audience you can only hear the audience through what the cameras picked up and what I picked up.
Oh, no.
That sound was gone. You couldn't use that sound at all because it was just all noise. Not
Yes.
all noise, but you know what I'm saying. It was
Yeah.
mainly, yeah. So the second time, I said we're going to take care of this, and there was, and I remained redundant, but I used 2 lavaliers. good thing. One lavalier didn't work, and the other
Yeah.
lavalier, the way it was placed, my hair kept hitting it, and it was an intermittent open in the wire. But
Oh gosh.
so once in a while you hear this, you know,
And you're like, "Oh no, there it
yeah,
goes again." Yeah.
yes, it's like, and so, and when I actually edited, when I went to edit it, there was all the, and there was like maybe 300 of those in a 90-minute show. Now, where it was silence, where I wasn't talking, I could just clip those out. I was literally
Mhm.
manually clipping them out. We tried
Oh
to do
my
it with the
gosh.
computer, but the computer altered the sound so much that I was doing like this. So
Oh,
yeah, so
yeah.
I manually did it, and then I where if it happened where I was talking, I would overdub the voice if I could. And I got it down to like maybe 7 of those, and I'm like, I'm not selling this anyway because but it's still good quality comedy, you know.
Yeah.
And then the third one is like, okay, I I've learned my lesson. I'm going to place the mic not a
Oh,
lavalier, but I got one like this, yeah,
yes.
and that way my hair would not touch it at all. That
Smart.
problem was solved. Uh, I didn't. I Oh, that's the other thing. My second one, I realized that I needed a stage manager for what I was
Mhm.
doing. So I hired a
Yeah.
stage manager who the night of the show didn't show up, and so there were some
Oh,
mistakes I
no.
made because I
Yeah.
didn't have a stage manager to keep things rolling.
Yeah.
So third annual special, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the show so I don't need a stage manager. I'm going to do the show, so I'm going to make it as automatic as possible. And I did do 2 shows. Actually, we did multiple shows so we could put them together. Um, and they had the music piped in. Audience comes in and they turn the music down. They turn the music down in the house,
Mhm.
but they still played it over top of the audience mic with the
Oh.
audience reaction. So it was music that instead of hearing the audience laugh, you'd heard all this music, and I
Yeah.
couldn't get that out. So it's,
Yep.
again, the only audience sounds you could hear would be what I picked up with my mic and the cameras, and it doesn't sound as full.
Right.
It sounds
It's
like, yeah,
it's really hard to, yeah, do what you're doing, and you have to have a crew that has done it many times to know all of those ins and outs of recording a live audience performance. Yeah.
and each time I had a crew, but there was something weird something happened that I'm like, I I didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, they should have known,
Yeah,
right?
but
That
they what
they're
happened? But
how
they
did they not know?
I the best I can figure is because once the show started, I think it kicked, like they thought it'd be like automatic, and so they
No.
didn't listen, and they were in the audience listening and having a good time, which is fine by me as long as. But I didn't occur to me that
Oh, they weren't
somebody.
listening on their headset and everything while they were doing it? Yeah.
No, they
Like
were in the audience.
yeah, like, even when we're on, sets and stuff, when I was acting and stuff in New York, like, everything in the building in which we'd be shooting something had to be shut down. All the air conditioner, the heater, the any vents and stuff, shut it. Everything, like, because mics and sound, everybody had to be wired separately, had to have backups for yeah, it is there's a reason those specials cost so much to record
Yes.
because there is a lot to manage, and if you're doing all of that on your own, oh my, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
So, and I'm glad you brought that up, like, even with I think this is something so valuable for performers. Like often we think of stand-ups, we show up, there's a mic and a stand there, we walk up, we do our bit and we leave. And what a lot of times and as people are starting to, do what you're doing and recording these specials and stuff, it's like, oh, bands, musicians, they're used to load in, sound check, do all of the things.
Right.
comics, we need to do the same thing, like sound checks. Let's record something, test it. Is it all working properly before I go and do my whole set? But even when people are doing these online virtual shows like on Plauzzable, I recommend and highly encourage people do a tech rehearsal,
Yes.
do everything, test all of the features and the controls and see what they do and have someone pretend to heckle, have like, play all that out while you have no pressure on you, you
Yeah.
know? Like, do all of that stuff before it costs you, fans, or tons of money to go and do it, practice, make sure when you record or you stream to YouTube or whatever it is, like, try it out before it's a high stakes place and you're
Yeah.
highly disappointed or flustered and frustrated. And it's amazing how many people I love that people will go on and they'll go for it, but it's like, "Oh, did you do a tech rehearsal?" And it's like, "Clearly, no."
Now I had, like I said, for my second one,
Yeah.
I like I said, first of all, I made sure, the crew was paid up. I hired a crew that had worked together. Not just
Yeah.
like four different camera guys. I
Yeah.
hired a crew that had worked together, so they had a shorthand. They knew how to work with each other.
Mhm.
Because matter of fact, the first two times I had a crew. Well, each time I was fortunate to have a crew that had worked together.
Mhm.
So that was
That's good.
but there was still other things that could go wrong that beyond, like, because of they were the video crew. They weren't the sound crew per se. The sound
Yeah.
crew was like the in-house theater. I'd rented for two of them. I rented a theater,
Yeah.
um because
It
I
gets expensive too.
yes,
Yeah. But that's it. Like, and a lot of these things, so like you, I've done a lot of these things trial and error. And
yes,
you made a great point earlier of like, I'd rather learn from someone through a workshop before I go and make all the like, why reinvent the wheel?
yes,
And so I love that you're bringing up some of these things because there's an opportunity for people who've done it to come back and teach people like, hey, don't make my mistakes,
yes, yes,
and do these things because again, like I've done a lot of these, you've done a lot of these, and I'm sure there's so many more we don't even know about. But you know, like anytime like even with your podcast, log in early because no two texts, no two venues are the same, no two nothing. And it's that preparation that I've learned in my experience over the years. Each new experience brings a new lesson. Show
yes,
up a little bit early, log in, test the audio, test the video, make sure things, like this was really cool because we met early and got to work out any of those details. And I think it's the same. And I think as we progress with comedy and how more technology is intertwined with it, that there's opportunity, like learn from musicians, show
yes,
up, do all the checks, play a song, play it back, is
yeah.
everything working out correctly? And I've been talking to musicians and they're like, "Yeah, we've been doing that for years. Where you all been?"
Exactly. Yeah, that's
You
because I
know?
started. I was back in my youth. I was a musician, played in a band,
Yeah.
and that was. And the other thing was, uh, the sound check, the lighting, and the rehearsals, and
Yeah.
placement. Making sure that you're where you need to be for certain things. Because like when I perform comedy, I check out the stage first. I go
Mhm.
I go like a week in advance so that I can see the stage, see how big an area I'm working in because I move around. And some of the things I do, actually, some of the punchlines I do, or actually I'm walking or I'm doing an act out. Let's say I need to take 5 steps to time it for that punchline. I start talking, I need to take 5 or 6, 5 steps, and then I land my punchline because I want to be at the edge of the stage when I say it.
Yeah.
And the stage, let's say, is much bigger and it takes 7 steps or 8 steps. So maybe I want to set myself up so I'm closer to the edge. So I only wind up taking 5 steps. Or if I wind up playing at some place where the stage literally is only 4 foot by 8 foot, you don't have 5 steps to take.
Yeah. Yeah, right? It those things make a big difference, or they can if,
Yeah.
depending on what you're even the other thing that makes me think of is, when whoever's booking the show, if they forget or somehow fail to tell the people they're booking that it's like a clean comedy show,
Yes.
and they didn't research who they're booking, and then you show up and you're like, "You need a clean set for families." I'm like, "I don't have a clean." I'm like, "Did you not know who you were hiring when you brought me on board for this?" And it's like, "What can I," there's a lot of even that. Like, I think it's important to have like a little checklist of, like you go and check out the venue, but even a booker should be like supplying some information, you know.
Yeah. Hi, I'm GD Fenderson, certified forensic humorist and host of Done Way Past Funny. You have just watched part one of our interview with Leanne Linsky, CEO and founder of Plauzzable. Please join us as we continue our interview, and when you come back to join us,